Hi, in this video, I'd like to look at another comparison between JavaScript and Python 3. And specifically, I want to look at the difference between how they implement their loops. The control loops, which we'll be using the for loop for, and the while loops. So let's get started. Now over here, I've got Python in Repellent and Khan Academy JavaScript here. So what I'll do is I'll just clear that. I'll just write. I'll write the how we write it in JavaScript. If you've learned JavaScript with me, you'll probably be familiar with this. So we start with the for. So I'm doing the control loop. The control loop. We call it the control loop because, or the for loop, because we can control when to start and when it ends. So var I is the variable that we're using to do the counting, equals 0. We start at 0, semicolon, I less than or equal to, and then 10 is the end number, and semicolon, I plus plus is how much we go up by, and this is going up by 1. Then we open close brackets to scope it, and then we'll print. So inside this, we'll print off I. Alright, so you can see here it prints off from 0, starts at 0, then prints off 10, ends at 10, and goes up by 1. Goes up by 1 there. Alright, and then we're printing off this I, which is what is starting from 0, going to 10, going up by 1. This is I right now. I is changing as it goes through that loop. Now in Python, we use the word for as well. However, we don't need to write var, we just go I, and we go in range is how we handle the range, right? In range. And what I can do is, instead of putting 0 and 10 here, I'll just put 10 here just to demonstrate something to you. Put it, and then we put a semicolon, a colon, and then we'll go print I. So that's pretty much how to write it in Python. Very similar, but I'll run this just to show you there's a slight difference here. Okay, so when you run this particular code, you notice that this thing ends at 9. It starts at 0, ends at 9, whereas this one starts at 0, ends at 10, because it doesn't go to 10. So Python doesn't actually go to the number that you put in here. It's pretty much equivalent to saying not equals here. So if I don't put the equals here, then this is the same as this. So just remember, it's not inclusive of that 10. It goes to the number less than 10. Starts at 0, goes to the number less than 10. Now in JavaScript, I actually tell it to start at 0. Whereas over here, I don't need to tell it to start at 0. So that's another difference. But what I could do was go 0, comma, and that will work the same. So what I've done is I've specifically said, hey, start at 0, end at a number less than 10, which is 9. And I haven't specifically told it to go up by 1. It knows to go up by 1 by default. Whereas this one, I put plus plus here to say, hey, let's go up by 1. What I could do is I could go comma 1 though, and that's pretty much all explicitly put in there. That's clear. I know to start at 0, end at a number less than 10, not inclusive of 10, and then go up by 1. Start at 0, end less than 10, and increment by 1. And that's pretty much equivalent to that. And I prefer this syntax because it's clear as to what's what. Just like here, this is clear. So in some ways, this has got a lot of writing, a lot more syntax. It's very syntax heavy, whereas this one's a little bit easier to write. And also you don't have to write certain things. You can just write, one thing at a time. Right? You don't have to write this part, and you don't have to write this part. The minimum is the end, and then it assumes to start at 0 and goes up by 1. Now, of course, you can go up by 2s. So I can change that to 2. Right, I can check to go up by 2s, and over here I go equals 2, and the same deal, right? I can go up by 1, so change it back to 1. I can start at 5 if I wanted to, so I can start at 5. So over here for both Python and JavaScript, I'll start at 5, end at a number less than 10. Let's just run that one. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can see here. And of course, I can change my end number to 7. change that to 7, and then it'll be 5 6 5 6, not inclusive of 7. Remember, not inclusive of 7. All right, so let's show you the while loop. So I'll just put a comment these out. I'll comment these out. And let's look at the while loop. So in JavaScript, the while loop is written by while. Let's do the same thing. Let's go num. Now let's go I equals, let's go var I equals to 0, start at 0. When I is less than 7, oh, so 10. We open, close bracket. We'll print off I, and then we'll go, whoops, ln, and then we'll increment I by 1. So I'll just put a semicolon there and there and there. All right. So same deal, 0 to 9, not inclusive of 10 because I didn't put an equals there. See, I just get rid of that equals. All right, so that's the while loop. So it's pretty much the while loop that's equivalent to this for loop. And let's write the same thing here in Python. While we'll go I equals 0, I less than 10, semicolon, colon for the scoping. That's pretty much equivalent to starting your brackets. Put a tab, print I, then go I plus plus, and let's try that. I'll put a pipe, and then you notice here in Python there's an issue with this plus plus. Python doesn't recognize a plus plus. So plus plus is is only exclusive to certain languages like JavaScript and a few other languages, C++, C#, a few other things. Doesn't exist in Python, but we can go equal I plus 1, or we could write I equals plus equal 1. So either one is fine. Okay, either one is fine. You can reduce that or you can use that. What I'll do is I'll use the shorthand version. The plus is first, plus equals. So that's the same. And I'll show you. And then of course there's the standard version that works. This one pretty much, this version works in should work in mostly any programming language. This one's exclusive to, could be exclusive to a different language. Over here, JavaScript also has the same syntax, so I'll just use the same syntax. Let's run that. And again, 0 to 9 there. So that's perfect there. No issues there. So pretty much the syntax for the while loop is very similar. The only main difference is this colon and no brackets on it as well. You know, there's just no brackets. This one's got brackets. All right. So so now the while loop. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually I'm using a while loop as a control loop. So this thing is a while loop as used as a control loop. So I'm controlling when it starts and when it ends. Generally, if you want to control where it starts and where it ends, you might as well use a for loop. All right. So while loops are mainly used for things such as you're not quite sure when it will end. Right, you're not quite sure when it'll end, so it might be something like, you know, while here we could go, we could count down. We let it equal to 10 while this is greater than 0. Count down. We'll go -1. Okay, we'll count down. So count down there. So that it's useful in that respect, and we don't know when it'll end. We don't know maybe when it'll end. It could be another condition. Maybe if it reaches a certain value or something like that. So it could do 100 times till it gets that certain value, or you can do it 10 times to get that certain value. So we're not quite sure when. We generally know when it could end and when it could start, but we don't know how many times it has to do it. And that's the beauty of a while loop. That's pretty much it. I just wanted to go through the difference there, and I'll see you in the next video.